As you embark on this new journey, what are some of the top challenges you think that your target client is dealing with in today's environment?
One of the things that's really interesting when we started talking to companies is that, especially younger technology companies, we're technology nerds, as Jim said. Thanks, Jim. I never knew I was a technology nerd, but okay. As a technology nerd, you kind of immediately realize, wow, there's something really there. Then, the entrepreneur will say, hey, we have these 3 to 5 first customers. What you then realize is they don't know how to take those 3 to 5 and make them the next, how to really get to the next customer. And the first set of customers they have are sometimes just really great marquee names, and they're really doing some really important work. But sometimes those first initial customers are actually driving the company into slightly different directions. And I ask questions like, okay, well, what's happening to your R&D team? Well, I'm trying to satisfy my first 3 strategic customers, and the roadmaps are going in 3 different directions, and because they're not really doing the same thing. And so we've really tried to really engage with the entrepreneurs around this idea of, okay, what is the use case that you're solving? Who's the buyer? What are they really trying to do? And really think about, how do you really discover the use case, the needs, the values, the motivation for the buyer before you start to try to scale. And so a lot of times they'll hire some salespeople, and that didn't work because they really weren't finished discovery before they tried to hire the first few salespeople. That seems to be a very common early company, how to transition from your early to kind of getting out of those first, let's call it 3 to 5, to the next set of customers. We actually like to slow the customers down a little bit and say, okay, you don't really know why that customer bought the product. Let's really understand that before we try to scale it. So that's kind of one very common thing that we see.
And from a technology perspective, how about you, Scott, as you dive in from your perspective, what the top challenges are? And then I'll ask the same question to you, Jim.
Oftentimes you find, with a smaller company, it's just around focus. Sometimes you try to do too much or go a little bit too broad. Like Mike said, oftentimes early on, you're happy to get any customer, and sometimes that means that you have to probably do more than you would have normally done. Sometimes we find smaller companies doing 2 or 3 things when they should really just be doing one thing. So we'll talk with them, talk it through, and try to make sure that we're solving the right problems. The problem that we're solving is big enough, and so that we can put kind of the energy of the company on a primary focus instead of kind of having more of a shotgun approach.
Yeah, so I think there's a strategic level and a tactical level we're seeing. And at the strategic level, it's around business model, pricing, kind of the business side of go-to-market that Mike mentioned. So you may have started as a SaaS model, or you may not have, but want to evolve to a SaaS model. And it's a great model once you got the flywheel going, but it has demands. It has capital demands. It has infrastructure demands. And you got to align all of that and how you go to market, how you price. We often find in pricing, because it's been pretty bespoke getting those first few customers, that pricing is overly complex, and that's hard in a SaaS model. So there's a lot of business model conversations, and then structuring around simplicity and aiming at the long term. On the tactical side, obviously we're in the middle of a global pandemic, and we all have pictures, physical pictures into where we each live and work. That's causing huge stresses for companies all over the map, but certainly stresses for companies that are pretty early stage and trying to get to the next level. You can't get out and meet with customers. You can't get out and fundraise. You're trying to figure out everything you can do from a team standpoint, and make sure that you have enough capital to get through to whatever's on the other side. And that then starts the the next conversation, which is anticipate being through. How do we envision the world post-COVID? And then how do we need to think about business models in this product area in that hopefully soon new world?
The ideal client for you guys, are you getting engaged post funding, or are you working with companies to help them get prepared to go raise money, or is it a combination of both? Somebody that's already gotten their first round or two, and then they want to go bigger, and you're going to help them get positioned to take that next round?
Yeah, I think it's all of the above. I mean, thus far, all the companies that we've been working with have customers, have revenue, generally have funded. They're at a level, they're trying to take it to the next level. When I look at some of the companies we're discussing, some are farther along. So they've done several rounds of financing and they're much bigger enterprises, but still with disruptive technology that makes it interesting for us. A couple of companies are earlier stage. They've gotten funding or they're self-funded and they're sustainable, but they're smaller. So we've really seen a mix.
One of the things that strikes me is that your highest and best use for a company might be in the area of what we call fresh eyes. Because traditionally, like for me, as a CEO, I got stuck where I was sort of protecting my people and realized that they don't have all the skills they needed, but I know their children, I like them as people. And so it's like, I can't let that person go, but they're part of the family here, kind of a feeling. But we had a business to run and I needed somebody to come in and say, Dave, if you had fresh eyes, what would you change? That kind of thing. And it helped walk me through. And that was the transition for Simple Signal from using B players and moving to A. And that's how we really grew the company, is that there are these constricting points. And I think that on my own, we would have never grown out of that. It took somebody to really come in from the outside and kick my butt and say, wake up. And I could see that the three of you would do this in your respective areas and move companies from B to A.
Some people are good at different stages of companies, and you have to kind of continuously reevaluate the team on the bench and make sure you've got the best folks to be effective. And yeah, we come in and we kind of, ask entrepreneurs, okay, like we don't think the metrics show up here in sales or marketing or whatever. We're not convinced, show us, let's engage. We also engage with those folks in the organization where we like to kind of get into the company. We don't try to just stay at high level. We'll work with folks within the company. So we get our own take of that, kind of make our own decision of whether or not we've got the best talent for the organization. But yeah, I mean, it goes beyond just organization. I think Jim mentioned things like business model and strategy and go to market. Always good to have an outside in view of those things so you get a fresh take on it and freshly challenged. So you're trying to convince people that your decision was right. You're really trying to engage and make sure that you're doing the right thing.
Could you ever imagine, Scott, the technology that your team largely led innovation globally on is now what's being deployed globally to enable business survivability and enable people to continue, have some sense of normalcy in a really crazy uncertain time. But now you've got literally the whole entire globe using this technology now. So I'd love to get your take on that.
Well, look, I mean, when we started up Broadsoft, we had a vision for our product, but we didn't actually know how it was going to connect with the rest of the world. So we were building an application, but there was no infrastructure to build it on top of. So we made some pretty radical technology choices. And it's nice to think we were the smartest guys around, but it was probably more luck than smarts, I think, at the time. And, look, I think we made some good choices and we were persistent and we got it there. If you would have asked me in 2001 if it would have taken as long as it took for the industry to move, I would have said, you're crazy. It's going to move a lot faster. It's probably, the industry is now at a level of maturity, which has taken 20 plus years. Some of the technology choices we made at the time, they were crazy. Now they're just commonplace. You do have to sit back occasionally and think about where are things going to be in 10 years. And it seems like 10 years is a long time, but it really isn't. I think if you're building a product, you have to convince yourself, hey, that product's still going to be useful in 10 or 15 years. Some products aren't. So, they're playing on something that's got a short life. So I think you have to kind of think about where things are going to be in the, in the long term.
How did you get to the name True North?
Well, look, I think Mike already had the website.
Oh, okay.
But then I think we were sitting around talking about what you think your direction should be and what it actually should be are not always the same. They're related, but not quite the same. So we said, hey, True North is a good indicator of how to come in and kind of just course adjust things to make sure you're going in the right direction.
So true that, as you guys know, as you embark on growing a business, sometimes it's a matter of staying true to the mission and the course. I love that. I think the name's great.